200 million Brazilians breathe easy as the Seleção scraped through to the quarterfinals after a riveting win over Chile on penalties. Neymar sparks the magic, but keeper Julio César steals the thunder. Yes, 4 done, 3 more to go for Brazil to achieve the ultimate triumph of winning a record 6th World Cup title at home. And of course, their president can certainly rest easy, at least for the time being. Hello and welcome to the beautiful game. I'm Sanjeev Mukherjee. In the studio here with me are in-house Brazilians after celebrating the Samba last night. Novi Kapadia and Karim Benchiri were the two of the premier football voices of India with the best analysis and perspective. But before we get to them, let's take you through our other top stories at this moment. Colombia making history, moving into the World Cup quarters for the first time as they brush aside Uruguay with James Rodriguez starting again with a delightful performance. The sharpest attack line versus the sturdiest defense. Yes, the rampaging Dutchmen are up to stake a claim for a place in the quarterfinals. In their way, the Dar defense of Mexico. And will Costa Rica continue their roller coaster ride, or will the Greeks pull off another heist? That's the other quarterfinal which we will be talking about. Yes, first up, 200 million Brazilians are going into a frenzy as shot stopper Julio César pulled off 2 incredible saves to help Brazil scrape through to the quarterfinals, beating Chile in a tiebreaker. Now, the round of 16 clash promised some very enthralling football, and neutrals weren't disappointed. In the 18th minute, Brazil got the goal they had been so eagerly waiting for, a Neymar corner from the right, and David Luiz sneaking it in at the back post, although Chile might as well claim an own goal. Now, a sharp Chile leveled things within 14 minutes after a back pass to Marcelo was intercepted by Eduardo Vargas, and an unmarked Alexis Sanchez made no mistake banging it in. And look at the face of Hulk right after the goal. He was the villain of the piece. That woke Brazil up, and they tested the Chile back four with raid after raid. After the interval, Hulk thought he had given Brazil the lead in the 55th minute, but instead was yellow carded for handling the ball. 1-1 at the end of regulation time, and both teams went for glory in extra time, with Chile coming closest as a Mauricio Pinilla hitting the crossbar. Despair for them. The hosts began the shootout well, with David Luiz converting first from 12 yards out, but then Chile fumbled as César pulled off 2 magnificent saves, with Yara hitting the bar with the final shot, thus paving the way for Big Phil Scolari's men to march into the quarterfinals. Let's listen into the Brazilian fans now.
We're crying tears of happiness as they cry tears of desperation and disappointment. What a game. My heart was pounding all through. We will win our 6th title. Adios, Chile. Let's go, Brazil.
I'm sad because we thought that we could go on and on. It is the best team Chile has had, and we were counting on making it to the final. But well, we did not. We did not make it to the final, but this was a good way to lose.
All right, it's time now to take you through the numbers. It's not just a victory, but it's a huge victory for Brazil. But the interesting things which both of these gentlemen here in the studio, Karim and Novi, is going to talk about. Forget about the 49% ball possession for once, but look at the conversion rate. 23 shots, fine, 13 on target, but the fact of the matter is that they actually had only 6 shots, which means that they had a conversion rate of 33%. Not really great for a team that is supposed to be the hosts and with such a glorious name. On the other hand, Chile putting up a fantastic fight. Yes, they did not really take as many shots at Brazilian goal, but the moment they went forward with the dangerous rapid passing pattern, that put the Brazilian midfield and defense in shambles. Only 13 shots, 5 on target, 5 corners, 3 yellow cards. Pretty ill-tempered match it turned out to be, but very little in the end separated a victory from defeat. Very little separated the winner from the loser. Novi Kapadia, if I could come to you, huge sigh of relief not only for Brazilians but also for the Brazilian president, because they were actually just inches away from being sent out of this tournament. But before we talk about that, it's a massive time for celebration in Brazil, because they are still alive and they are now in the quarterfinals.
Yes, well, twice the bar came to their rescue. Pinilla, in the 118th minute, if he had converted that shot, there would have been no time for Brazil to recover. And then Yara, the last penalty kick, which was just, sort of a fraction of an inch here or there. If it had gone into the sudden death in penalties, a lot of pressure would have been put on Brazil. Because the team which is leading in the penalty shootout,
right,
if it goes to the sudden death, pressure would have been on Brazil. A closely fought match played at frantic pace. Brazil showed a lot of pace and energy, but little subtlety in attack. That was the sad aspect of their build-up. You didn't have the clever passing, the slowing down the pace of the game. One wonders now if Scolari is missing taking somebody of the skill and guile of Robinho at least, who could have maybe changed the complexion coming on as an impact substitute. Because here you had all players playing roughly the same way.
Absolutely. And in fact, we'll talk more about the specifics of the match. But Karim, yes, as a lot of people will admit, even you, me and Novi are right here, that the tournament obviously would be a better one with Brazil still around. But obviously the heart goes out to Chile. They played a very good game. They took the fight back, and it's just about the woodwork that denied them twice. Pena coming in, rattling the crossbar seconds before the match got over in the extra time, and then seeing his shot saved by Julio Cesar. What would have possibly gone through his mind?
They may have feel disheartened, because I think they produced a very, very strong performance yesterday. They stopped Brazil's strength everywhere. They stopped Neymar. They soaked the pressure of the Brazilian team and also the fans. So they was also under tremendous pressure, but they did play a very clever game. They had slightly better creativity on the midfield. But they lacked a little bit penetration. That's what hurt them a lot, because we did not seen a lot of based on the build-up that they did. They didn't create a lot of chances. And it's the irony is here it can show you that we always know Brazil of creativity and goals and great strikers, the box strikers, the position of Fred. Normally we had seen Careca, Bebeto, Romario, Ronaldo. These are box players who are normally finish after every game being the star of the show. Now Brazil, the irony is they're ending with the goalkeeper as the star of the show, which we are not used for a team like Brazil with the quality of Brazil.
In fact, whenever we talk about Brazilian goalkeepers, Novi, the example of Barbosa is always brought alive. But Julio Cesar, what a fantastic turnaround. 4 years ago, we all remember, he was targeted by the Brazilian media as the villain of the piece after Brazil lost out in the quarterfinals. And after that, his career has actually gone nowhere. He's literally a Queen's Park Rangers reject. But now, Canadian media could actually say it's a great day for Canadian football because he plays for our club, Toronto FC. Fantastic saves there. And he actually pulled off a heist, because without him, who knows, Brazil would have been out. We would have been discussing Chile's win right now.
Credit to Scolari on that he realized his experience was vital. It was not just the 2 penalty saves. There was a shot midway through in the match, which was a remarkable reflex action save. So yes, Julio Cesar, I think the last great Brazilian goalkeeper really was Gilmar. And Julio Cesar has done that. He's kept the hopes of a nation alive. Not only the president, he's kept the hopes of a nation alive. Better luck next day.
In fact, Julio Cesar could be an early candidate for, popular candidate for the choice of president next time if they do actually replace the president with a human being, because even the woodwork stands a great chance. A lot of people have written on Twitter that they were praising the woodwork for coming on this. Karim, show us the analysis. The fact of the matter is that, we've seen the formations in which Brazil and Chile played more or less convincing patterns which they used to do. But the problem here, one spotted, is that whenever Brazil was with the ball inside their own halves, always there are 2 or 3 Chile players who are hassling them, and that's the reason they were using so many long balls. And it meant Neymar was totally cut off in the second half. How would you solve this problem?
Absolutely. If we can see, Chile came with this formation. So now when Brazil have the ball, there was always 2 the front players, Sanchez and the other striker, and Vidal also sometimes he joined in, and they didn't allow them to build on this defensive turn. And what hurt Brazil also, because we have Hulk, Fred and Neymar, here in this area where normally the build-up should be, Brazil was under pressure by the midfield of even these two players they joined inside. So they was under pressure by the defense, by the midfield of Chile, but also they didn't have any creativity here enough to get out from those situations. That's what we end up looking at,
straight long balls,
not using this midfield to build and to try to create chances.
Were you surprised, Karim? Because if you could explain a further bit, first 20 minutes, Brazil had blown away Chile, including the first goal which came in the 18th minute. The way they were crisscrossing, the strikers were fantastic. Hulk and Fred, for once, looked to be part of the game. After that, they vanished. Nobody knows where they were. But after that, not only did Chile equalize, but gradually they took over the game, because in the second half it was more of a battle of attrition. Neymar was nowhere to be seen, and the fact is that Sanchez was literally doing what Neymar was doing in the first half. Sanchez in conjunction with Vidal. How did they manage that?
If I explain it, Chile, when they have the ball, now when Chile have the ball, they push the wing backs and they open the back three quite a lot. And so what Brazil did is, by doing this Chile, there is a lot of spaces between the three centre backs. We remember they are not four, they are only three. And the Brazil plan was very clear. They put pressure on the back three, on the midfield, and whenever they win the ball, they don't want possession. They go direct to those spaces, which they create a lot. But this took a lot of energy from the three front players. Add to that Oscar, because they did a lot of sprints on that first 20-30 minutes of the game. But credit to also, despite this problem, Chile didn't close down. They still able to build from the back, because they still able to build better than Brazil, because they have always almost 4 versus 3, because we have Hulk, Fred and Neymar putting pressure on the back three, but there is always this midfielder who
there's an extra hand
into those spaces, and they didn't play very direct, especially on the first half.
The Argentine coach of Chile surely got his strategy right in place. Unfortunately, the woodwork and of course the goalkeeper saved the day for Brazil. But on the other hand, Novi, as when we were watching the match yesterday, you in fact mentioned this point, that the moment Brazil started, it was as if they started on a breakneck speed. They wanted to finish off the game in the first 15-20 minutes. As a result, what we saw was that they started losing energy and momentum towards the end. Not only that, the question here is, why would you play a striker, like someone like a Fred? Where was he? 64 minutes he plays. Only 6 passes he completes, 3 shots, none on target, does not win a single aerial ball. Why would you have somebody like Fred in your side?
Simple reason, there's nobody else. I mean, because the replacement who came in, Joe, was probably as lackluster. Joe missed one of the easiest chances when a lovely cross by Hulk from the left, when he could have side-footed it into the net. I mean, Joe didn't even get close to the ball. So somehow, Scolari has missed out in choosing good, an appropriate striker. Fred is probably off form. He's not the same form that he showed in the Confederations Cup last year. And that is the fact. Yes, in the beginning, Brazil did play a high energy game, and we thought then they would, there would be a plan B. But sadly, in this Brazilian team, there doesn't seem to be a plan B. Either you break them down with this hurricane, or then they suddenly flounder. The most disappointing was Neymar. In the second half, he became anonymous. Either it's an injury, or he was, he couldn't break the close marking.
He did seem to have an injury when he was clattered on by Gary Medel early on, but surprisingly, as the visuals showed us, that he was given water treatment, and after that he looked to be normal. But Karim, I would like to also pick your brains on what would be the correct positioning of number 1 Fred. How would you play him, if you at all play him? And secondly, what is the role of Hulk? Because Hulk only threatened in the last 15-20 minutes. We were seeing Hulk defending, incredibly bizarre loose ball which he gave away for Chile to hit back at Brazil, and he was not really in the game. The best
position for Fred is on the bench besides Scolari. So,
Mr. Scolari, are you listening to Karim
in my
Benzema?
opinion, he failed miserably in the first, in the basically all the 3 games that he played.
Right.
And coming back to Hulk, Hulk is not a winger, is not a defender.
Right.
He's very strong. I still remember when I watched him with Porto.
Right.
He was the center forward. He have the physique to do that. He's strong. He's very mobile. He's not bad technically. He's far better than Fred on the center forward position. Brazil have a lot of options
Right.
on the line behind the main forward.
Right.
Neymar, Oscar, William. They have a lot of players who can play
Right.
there. But the problem of Brazil is on that position of Fred, center forward, which I think Scolari should look at.
So who would you play? Who would you play?
Hulk. I would
Okay.
put Hulk as the main forward and put behind Neymar, Oscar, William or anybody else. But Hulk, I think he will do a much, much better job on the central forward position.
Yeah, he has to transform himself into the incredible
Because he
Hulk,
doesn't
as
have
the
options, Scolari.
as the media says, because that's the sort of performance we are looking at. But yes, Neymar had a disappointing second half. But you know, Novi, let's give him credit also that they see that the burden, he is carrying the burden of his nation, much like a younger Sachin Tendulkar here in India in Indian cricket. But at 22, as Scolari says, he plays like as if he's 35. He's so mature. He never showed the pressure which was on him. Yes, the first half he was quick to the ball. It was literally impossible to catch, and he was involved in all the attacks, all the movements which Brazil did. And not only that, there are similarities which we saw. We saw him do the paradinia, which people say, the little hop, skip, jump, waiting for the goalkeeper to be wrong-footed and then take the penalty. This is something which requires a lot of courage. So Neymar obviously has it in him, and he knows that this is his World Cup.
Yeah, the penalty he was the sort of epitome of calmness and coolness, because it was very vital. I mean, a miss there could have ended Brazil's hopes. And the fact to take the 5th penalty kick shows that the coach trusts him a lot out there. There are so many senior players there, but yet he relies on Neymar for the 5th penalty. The first penalty kick taker and the 5th are always the most important.
Right.
But, you know, coming back to Hulk also, another perspective, he could have been a hero. I mean, that was a 50-50 goal. I mean, well, Howard Webb spotted it. Many referees would have overlooked that. So, yes, probably I agree there, what Karim is saying. Probably the option now is to try Hulk as a striker, because I think that's his best position. He would shield the ball brilliantly,
right,
and you know, give Neymar an option to play off a striker who can play with his back to the goal.
Right. Since obviously Novi and Karim, every morning and evening also we do hardcore analysis. Another point I would like to touch upon and pick both of your brains is that the problem which Brazil also had, which was exposed badly, Fernandinho and Oscar, they were actually taken out by Diaz and Aranguez. They absolutely had no answer. And in those positions, Fernandinho obviously came in for Paulinho, has been a big flop in this tournament. And Oscar, who started with such a bang, it will be a big deterrent for Scolari, for his team to move forward, possibly against a very physical, athletic and very fast Colombian side whom they're going to meet in the quarterfinals.
That's what we talked about. There is a very evident lack of creativity in this Brazil midfield. You know, there is nobody who is creative to get out from situations where under pressure. Because when you play now at this level, if you had seen yesterday, the Chilean players did it very well. Every player who have the ball have at least one, sometimes two Chilean players on him, and very fast. And here comes the creativity, when to play one touch, when to keep the ball, when to dribble. And Neymar is good at that, but they did
and
a very
Vidal
good,
was magnificent, yes.
They did a very good plan for him. And Neymar was never only with one player. Number one, they used more than one player to block him.
Right.
And number two, they was very aggressive with him. Few tackles and all that, till he became a little bit shaky mentally. I felt he was, later on, he became afraid to hold on the ball, to play his game.
Right.
And that's what we should give credit to Chile players on the way they press on the ball, but also the lack of creativity is very evident and doesn't help Brazil midfield.
Right. Before we wrap this up, obviously a lot more to talk about Novi and Karim in the days going forward, looking forward to the quarterfinal clash against Colombia. But the English press, English media would also be delighted. On a lighter note, they have discovered the finest Englishman on the World Cup stage, Howard Webb. From 14 cards in the last final, this time there were only 5. plus the fact that he's actually spotted what was a very difficult decision to call it a handball. Maybe he erred a little bit by actually giving a yellow card to Hulk when it was actually looked to be a legitimate effort to control the ball.
No, Howard Webb had a very good game. Maybe sometimes, in the beginning, he just cautioned the players when he could have given them a yellow card. So in that way, he was a policeman totally in control. And he certainly, I think it was a very good choice to have Hulky Howard Webb in charge because he's, he has the personality.
But Novi, I need to ask you this. Had Brazil lost, the crowd, the entire Brazil would have gone after Howard Webb for not giving the penalty to Hulk, number one. Secondly, disallowing the goal.
For disallowing the goal, yes, I think that would have been really, because we saw Scolari's reaction to that also.
Carlos Alberto Pereira, he's generally so quiet on the sidelines. He was so animated. Karim, Howard Webb, in such a situation, would he actually need maybe a wig and a moustache to travel in Brazil now after this? Because they'll be they're like, look, this guy is not letting us play our natural game, not allowing us to score our goals and also not giving us penalties.
Well, I think he himself, he knew he was under pressure because from that final Holland-Spain, where you rightly said he distribute 14 cards.
Right.
In my opinion, at the first 15-20 minutes, there was many cards he should have given.
Right.
But he avoided because he have at the back, I'm sure he was advised to not be harsh because there is games coming and there will be a lot of suspended players.
Right. So possibly this is a Brazil team that still needs some stopping before anybody can actually say that they are out of the tournament. Well, they are at least not losing, and looks they could go all the way. I know Novi Kapadi is very, very excited about Brazil particularly. So let's take a final look at this round of 16. The first round of fixtures, Brazil versus Chile. Brazil are through to the quarterfinals. Next up, Colombia versus Uruguay. We will talk about the Colombian fairy tale which happened last night, which now makes it a Brazil versus Colombia. It's a mouth-watering quarter-final prospect, and let's not forget, they are again two very, very different styles, two very, very different group of players, and the big rivalry will be Rodriguez versus Neymar. That's coming up right after the break, so stay right there. Welcome back. Now, James Rodriguez struck what could be the goal of the tournament and then added another as Colombia created history, reaching the World Cup quarterfinals for the first time as they brushed aside Uruguay 2-0 at the Maracana late last night. Now, Colombia, who looked in control right from the word go against Uruguay at Rio de Janeiro, did not want to waste much time as they took a well-deserved lead in the 28th minute with James Rodriguez, who else scoring a wonder goal that is deserving of the stage that the Maracana gives to you. A left-footed screamer from just outside the penalty box as everyone looked on in awe. He was actually surrounded by 5 men, but they had nothing to do looking at his piece of wonderful skill. A toothless Uruguay without their top goal scorer Luis Suarez could hardly present any bite in the attack. 5 minutes after the interval, Colombia doubled their lead as James Rodriguez again finished with ease from close range to become the highest goal scorer so far at the 2014 World Cup with 5 goals. Colombia will of course now face Brazil at the quarterfinals at Fortaleza on Friday, which means that it will be literally a face-off between Rodriguez and Neymar. Let's take you through the numbers. 55% ball possession to 45 for Uruguay. Uruguay, in spite of the fact that they held deep inside their own half, they had 16 shots, 9 on target, but look at Colombia, 10 shots, 8 on target, 3 corners, 1 yellow card. It got a little bit physical in towards the middle of the game, but the fact of the matter is it looked like only one team was out there to win the game, and it was certainly not Uruguay. Forget Luis Suarez for a day, Novi Kapadia. Obviously, Uruguay will be joining Suarez back in Montevideo, the Uruguayan team, because they've departed. But every footballer has a different story, has a great story to say. James Rodriguez, everybody's talking about him. But isn't he the boy with a wonderful start? He in fact got his first break when a suspected associate of Colombia's biggest drug lord, Pablo Escobar, spotted him as a kid in a camp, football camp, and told the club that you need to get this boy on board. And after that, life was a fairy tale, and now we are seeing him.
Well, that's the good, the bad, and the ugly of Colombian football. So many players have been spotted, you know, by the drug cartels, so they do some benefit. But James Rodriguez, that volley, the trapping on the chest, that left-footed volley, arguably one of the goals of the tournament. And he, a midfielder, is now the top scorer of the tournament as he's leading the rush. And, you know, the calm, cool elegance that he displays on the ball.
Right.
A quicker Valderrama. You know, also he could be the most eligible bachelor of the tournament. Only thing he's not. He's married to the goalkeeper's sister, David Espuña, who's an international volleyball player. So there are a lot of sporting links in this team. And Espuña had a brilliant game. Towards the end, Uruguay attacked.
Yeah.
So even the goalkeeper played outstandingly. It's a complete Colombian team. It's not just good in attack as in the past. The defense, the goalkeeper, midfield, of course, and even in attack.
Yeah, before we, of course, we'll touch upon those facts, Novi and Kareem. But before we come to the fact that whether he's actually successfully taken on the mantle of being Valderrama's true success and the famous number 10 shirt, Kareem, you as a coach yourself, you have seen your players doing the drills, you know, going through the motions and also executing some brilliant pieces of action. What were you thinking when you saw Rodriguez execute that shot? It was not just unstoppable, it was out of the world. What was your reaction? How did he do it?
It was brilliant. The execution was perfect. For me, it's the best goal of the tournament so far till now. If you come back to the goal, there was a possession passing on the midfield.
Right.
The defense of Uruguay cleared slightly the ball.
Right.
And nobody, this is the beauty of the goal, and that's why it was scored. Nobody expected a shot to be from that position, because it was just part of the build-up again. A header to him came on his chest.
Right.
99% of the players, what they will do, they will just bring the ball down and start the build-up again.
Right.
Because he's not in a very favorable position with it back to the goal,
Right.
outside of the 18. The ball is high, but he did what the unexpected, which the defense of Uruguay couldn't read that, and also the goalkeeper never expected a shot to come from this position.
Right.
Excellent, excellent
I wish,
technique to the perfection.
I wish, Kareem, we had a football at this point of time inside the studio to actually show you, allow you to show our viewers. But Novi, yes, you said that he cannot certainly be the most eligible bachelor. You've given up his marital status, and I'm sure a lot of his female fans in India would be very, very heartbroken hearing you, Novi. But will he be the true successor of Carlos Valderrama? Because if we go by numbers or just the sheer achievements, he has gone past Valderrama. Not only taken the number 10 shirt, which was given to him just 2 years ago at the ripe young age of 20, but now he has led them, or rather powered them, into the quarterfinals, which even Valderrama failed.
As Valderrama failed because, I think, more because of Higuita's antics, coming out of goal and allowing Roger Milla to get those goals, and then that great celebration. No, I think he's the modern Valderrama. I mean, playing at a much quicker pace, a greater awareness, and I mean, two brilliant goals. Even the second goal, the first goal, of course, a masterclass. Even the second goal, the timing, the position. The first goal, a volley. The next, a half volley.
Right.
So, I mean, he's elegant, he's creative, and above all, what I like, unlike Neymar, brilliant temperament, doesn't get rattled at all. The Uruguayans were clamping down on him, cluttering him. You know, there's always that smile on his face. So Neymar will remain the most eligible bachelor, but the race for the golden boot is hotting up.
Maybe Arsenal should also try him out in the transfer market. Who knows how things work in the football transfer market. Yes, Kareem, you wanted to make a point.
Just I want to add, Valderrama and James Rodriguez are two different styles. Valderrama was a playmaker, a midfielder. James Rodriguez, he can play on the wing, he can play behind striker, more attacking, and that's why he scored more goals. But this two Colombians team, the Colombia of Valderrama, the Colombia of now, what is the difference between them is Colombia of Valderrama, if you remember, there was only possession, no shots on goal, no penetration. If you see, they end up always with 65 like this, but no penetration. But this time is a complete Colombia with a good possession, but also they like to go forward with players like James Rodriguez.
Spot on here, Kareem. That's why you are where you are and where Novi is. Well, on that note, it's also good to remind our viewers that it's always good if you do not have a goalkeeper who executes those fantastic but sometimes suicidal scorpion kicks, as Novi reminded us of Rone Higuita. On that note, it's time for the second break on the show. When we come back, it's the Dutch might against the Mexicans. Yes, Giovanni Dos Santos and company will take on the rampaging Arjen Robben and Robin van Persie. Yes, the round of 16 is well and truly on its way. And tonight we have a couple of very, very important and interesting matches, although they could be very, very different in nature. First up, the Netherlands take on Mexico. That's the first game which is coming up for us at 9:30 India time. Netherlands versus Mexico, two completely different styles taking on each other. The Mexicans, after their fantastic performance in the game against Brazil, will be very high on confidence. But remember, they are facing one of the sharpest stinging attacks in the Dutch, who've scored, in fact, 10 goals in their group stage. Up next, 1:30 a.m. India time, Costa Rica. Now, who would have thought it? The story from the group of death, the story from the entire World Cup. Costa Rica versus the Greeks. Would you believe that? The Greece versus Costa Rica. And as Novi just pointed out, trust him for his knowledge there, whoever wins will be a first-time quarter-finalist, be it Costa Rica or Greece, and that team will be meeting the winner of the game between the Dutch and the Mexico. So the first game tonight, which sees the Dutch clash against a very sharp Mexican defense at Fortaleza for a place in the quarters. Now, this time promises to be full of fireworks, with the Dutch, who had the most prolific attack in the group stages of the World Cup, scoring 10 times in 3 games, up against a Mexican defense who proved themselves against the fiery Brazil attack. Van Gaal's squad, though, will welcome back their talismanic captain Robin van Persie after his 1-match suspension to join forces with the imperious Arjen Robben up front. Mexico, on the other hand, with the likes of Giovanni Dos Santos and Oscar Peralta in their ranks, will look to hurt them on the break. Now, the other game tonight is a clash that no one could have possibly called at the start of this tournament. Neither did we, as Costa Rica will take on Greece in Recife. Now, Costa Rica are arguably the story of this tournament so far. Los Ticos, as they're called, remember, were the shock yet deserved winners of the group of death that actually sent home 2 former world champions, packing England and Italy back. Captain Brian Ruiz and striker Joel Campbell have led from the front with aplomb so far, but up against Costa Rica tonight is perhaps the most stingy of all defenses. Not many would fancy Greece's chances of progression, but remember, Fernando Santos' men will surely look back to that stunning Euro 2004 campaign for inspiration as they look to cause yet another Greek tragedy at the world stage. Novi, the Dutch are back. Finally, the form team of the tournament. Yes, everybody has their own favourites, but the Dutch, they have been imperious in their style, with Van Persie and Robben combining together up front with such a deadly finesse and striking power. And obviously Van Persie returns to the side. I'm sure Van Gaal would have his strategy in place for Mexico.
Van Gaal is changing his team according to his opponent, and Van Persie coming back, I mean, yes, is the type of a trump card, but it's an early afternoon kickoff, 1 p.m. Brazilian time, so the heat
favors
will
Mexico?
Yes, will favor Mexico. The heat will be a factor, will prevent the Dutch from playing that, high tempo, non-stop running. But Robben's blistering pace, like he used against Chile, can be used tellingly if done occasionally. A tough task for Rafael Marquez, aging defender but very astute. But he has excellent support, Aguilar as well as Miguel Layun. And the best goalkeeper in the tournament against the best attack of the tournament, a cracker of a match.
Which I was coming to, that Kareem, Of course, the Dutch absolutely clobbered Spain in the opening game. 5-1, who would have thought about it? That's the sort of humiliation. But they were, in a sense, helped by the fact that very poor goalkeeping from Iker Casillas, who was well beyond his sell-by date. But now, they run into one of the best defenses, very closely knit defenses, yet, yes, a little aging, but also one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now, as from evidence we have seen, Guillermo Ochoa. How do they take him on?
Well, Van Gaal, during the previous games, he changed his system, and we, to be honest, we can expect Mexico to be on their usual 3-5-2.
Right.
But for the Dutch, we don't know what's in Van Gaal's mind.
Right.
I think if he could have been inspired by the match Brazil versus Chile, because the way Brazil started the game did expose that 4-2-3-1 versus a 3-5-2, did expose few weaknesses, especially when you press those back three, and especially when they have the ball and they leave spaces. So at 4-2-3-1, he have Van Gaal have the players
Right.
to execute it very well, with especially players like Robin,
Right.
one of the fastest player in the tournament, player like Van Persie, who is maybe one of the rare target central forward, and I think if he could inspire from that, would be a very wise decision to start with the formation 4-2-3-1,
Right.
and not look to play possession game
Right.
till Mexico recover and defend, but rather playing a very quick counter-attacking game against Mexico.
Right. Ending this quickly, no, we obviously talk about the stronger team, at least on paper, but there are blind spots on the wings for the Dutch. We have seen from Jamaat and Blind, Danny Blind, who had a fantastic opening in the first game against Spain, but then they were caught napping in the other two games that followed, more specifically by Australia. That is somewhere which the particular wing-based play of somebody like a Peralta or even Dos Santos, he's very speedy, very nippy, could actually hurt the Dutch.
Could hurt the Dutch, yes, but on the other side, I mean, both Vlaar and Stefan de Vrij have really risen to the occasion. It's a young defense which will have to keep their concentration. That is extremely important for the Dutch, and it'll be a fascinating contrast in styles. Which team is going to play counter-attacking? So I think it's going to be not only the pacey Dutch attacks, but interesting, tactical battle also.
Interesting tactical battle. Yes, of course, everybody will be looking forward to that, because if the Dutch go through, then surely they could have a relatively easier match in the quarters against the winner of the game between Costa Rica and Greece. All right. Experts have had their say. It's time now for us to bring in what you have been telling us, the conversation here on CNN IB, and that's what we will bring up right after the break. So stay right there. Welcome back to the beautiful game. Time now to bring you into our conversation. The first up on Twitter, Rahul says, relief for the Seleção, but spare a thought for a red-hot Chile side that twice hit the bar in the dying minutes. Well, that's what most of the times which makes the difference between life and death. Gaurav Kalra, former colleague of former CNN IBN sports editor, he's tweeted to us saying, is it time to allow players to ask for a review of a decision like in other sports? We'll get Novi and Karim to answer Gaurav's question in just a bit. But before that, Bagad says one of the best goals in this World Cup, James, obviously Rodriguez, shows us class. Next big player, 4 matches, 5 goals. He's already a big player, he's not the next one. The next up, Johnson Putur says Uruguay looks toothless without Suarez. I'm sure they do so. Finally, the tweet of the day coming from It's Rajbanshi says, congratulations Brazil for advancing to the quarterfinal, but a game like this cannot make you win the final. Well, I'm sure a lot of people will agree on that, but getting back to Gaurav Kalra's question, that is it really, Novi, time to allow players the liberty, or rather the opportunity, to ask for a review, because there are more often than not so many genuine errors being made by referees we've seen in this World Cup, and which can actually cost a team a lot.
Well, if Brazil had lost, all of Brazil would have said yes, and they, after the Hulk's goal was disallowed.
Right.
So I think there's no harm in a referral, but like in hockey, each team allowed just one referral, and if you get it wrong, your chance goes,
Right.
and if you get it right, you have one more. So I mean, the game is not stopping all the time. The advantage of football is the flow.
Right.
But if you brought in goal line technology, use technology further, and maybe one referral, it can be made very interesting on TV. The referee talking to the, to the referee outside.
Right.
So maybe one referral would help.
Karim, would you go with that?
Well, FIFA, we know, is very conservative on this topic.
Right.
You had seen they took ages to introduce the goal line
technology.
But in my opinion, it will be very complicated because there are many decisions that can be, if you count every match that we see, we can discuss maybe 5 to 10
Right.
decisions that can go either way.
Right.
And if we will stop for each decision, then it will be...
It slows down the game even
The
further.
game will be different.
Game would be different, but yes, of course, there needs to be a way in which FIFA does find a way to do away with such high percentage of refereeing errors in such crucial games. Well, Gaurav Kalra, I'm sure you would be happy, man. Your question has been answered by both your friends here, Karim and Novi. On that note, let's remind you how you can come into this conversation here on CNN IBN. Remember, all you got to do is tweet to us here at IBN Live with the hashtag, which is very important, with the hashtag World Cup, WORLDS, then CUP, World Cup. You can leave in your questions for Karim, Novi, also your thoughts and anything you want to talk about on the World Cup. They'll be more than happy to answer you right there. On that note, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here and sharing with us your vast knowledge and perspective. Let me just remind you guys that Karim and Novi will be back tonight at 7:30 when they look ahead to that fantastic game, the El Tri versus the Orania. Arjen Robben versus, of course, the entire Mexico possibly. On that note, goodbye. Thanks for watching.